Welcome back to Old Guy REI. We're back again. Mikey and I are here to go over the highlights from last week's accountability Zoom call. We had a pretty good turnout, and I'm thankful, Mikey, that we did because we had Dana, the CEO from Hemlane, on with us. How did you think that all went?
I was so glad she came by. We're trying to get more and more guest speakers coming on. We've already had Ali Boone come on, turnkey provider. We've already had Brian Belstein, neighborhood loans, your lender come on. So we've had great conversations that way. So I think the more people we can get involved with the accountability meetings can only help us as a group.
Yeah, and it was a pleasant surprise. Dana did bring a lot of information about Hemlane itself, but she was able to help a couple of other people with questions that night too. They spoke about investing within a self-directed IRA, and she helped us as well because I've been talking about trying to stay really involved in the renting process for the 3 units that we're going to have come available in St. Louis. And she had talked about some different places to get rent comps that I could bring back to the property manager and share those with them. Um, she mentioned things like Facebook Marketplace and Zumper and Hot Pads. I think you've checked Hot Pads out, haven't you?
I love hot pads to kind of establish my rent box.
Great. Yeah. So I started digging into those. I did also check in with the housing authority there in St. Louis to see what the process was like. I let them know my goal was to stay involved in the process of renting the units out and obviously trying to get as much rent as we can, uh, obviously, and still be fair. But like I mentioned before, our property manager had given us some comps that were I thought were a little bit low. Um, so I'm supposed to get a call back this week from one of the people from in the housing authority in St. Louis City to see what their numbers are looking like these days, and hopefully they'll be in line with what I was hoping for.
The one thing I noticed is the more and more you're doing real estate investing, the better shopper you become. So that's just another thing is you're just trying to do your due diligence and get the best possible.
Yeah, yeah, that's one thing that we've been learning, especially with Matt, right? Stabilizing and optimizing the properties. And once you acquire them, I think once you're done with the deal, you have a little bit more time to do a little deeper dive into a lot of these different subjects so that you can maximize rents and make your property as nice as it should be for the area. You don't want to over improve, obviously, but you definitely don't want it under improved either. We had a couple new people join us this week. One person was from Texas. We have a few people from Texas in the group, but they had been doing build to rent. And her question was, I think she had some like commercial loans on her properties because she talked about having 5-year balloons that were going to be coming up next year. And she was looking for help, looking for lenders that she might be able to refinance out of those loans into more conventional type loans. And I think she got a lot of good feedback that night. Hopefully it was helpful for her.
Yeah, I wonder if she's gonna reach out to Uncle Steve from Velocity Banking.
Yeah, she said she would either check in with Convoy and Steve Dow. Those would be great places to start. And I think some of us in the group had encouraged her to get started in the process now. She said she had time because it was a whole year away, but I think she could do a lot of the heavy lifting up front and be ready instead of waiting till the last minute and then having to jump through hoops. There was also that was some information too that Dana had helped with. A few of the other people in the group had mentioned some lenders that they work with. Um, Dana had also mentioned this. I guess it's a new thing. It's called Utility Profit, and it's some kind of an organization that helps tenants set up their utilities. It's like all in one place. They help the tenants set those things up. It was utilityprofit.com. So that was some good information there. We
And I like,
also, oh,
oh,
go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I like that we talked about the Fed expectations too. That kind of blended well when we're talking about how, the one investor should reach out to all the lenders and see what's available.
Yeah, because like we said before, lending changes weekly, it seems like. So, when one good program ends, another one usually opens up. And I've said before that keeps us hopeful. Yeah. Because sometimes you think you just missed the boat, but then they come up with something else that'll help us keep moving forward. So that's encouraging. We also had kind of hit on the this upcoming event with Zuber in February, and we're just wondering how many people are going to make it this year. I know he's been putting out some videos talking about um, the lineup this year, which is nice to hear because we hadn't really heard too much about who the speakers were going to be and things like that. But it seems like the lineup is getting more defined. And he also was talking to Anna Kelly, kind of giving her a hard time about coming this year. But like she said, she's got some commitments with her family that come first, and which is understandable. But I know a bunch of us are hoping she'll make it this year.
She did mention she has an idea of her speech, what her speech would be, so that gave me hope.
Yeah, and she did. She had some good thoughts on a presentation that was really good to hear. So, and at least she's mentioned that she's thinking about it. She saw the dates that it's going to happen, and whether they coincide or not with her daughter's competition will be the determining factor. We That event is kind of in the middle of everything. Valentine's Day is Friday, and then President's Day is Monday. So some of the people in the group mentioned that they couldn't break away because of Valentine's Day, and I think it was because their spouse couldn't make it or something, and they didn't want to be away on that holiday for that reason. But we're lucky; we get to go a little bit early and stay a little bit late. So Cynthia and I will be together for Valentine's Day, and it even got a little bit off track with some of the ladies in the group talking about the presents that they were hoping to get for Valentine's Day. Do you remember what those were?
So I heard a riding lawnmower, and I also heard on the other side of it a chainsaw. So you
Yeah,
can't make this up. You can't make this stuff up. This is what a real estate investor wants for Valentine's Day.
yeah, and that was kind of cool because I think it's helpful. On the one hand, a guy might feel kind of, I don't know, not cheap, but when your girl asks you for something that she could really use, I think it's a good idea to get that gift instead of buying tons of other things that she can't use, and spending all that money on something that, I mean, she'll appreciate the thought, but she would rather have that still chainsaw. Um, and that kind of led us to kind of the mentality of this group, right? What did you think about that?
I enjoyed that part because there's different types of relationships, and with real estate investing, you know, you could have one spouse into it, 100% into it. Maybe the other spouse is not totally on board. You could have another relationship where the one spouse is maybe half into it, and the other spouse is just kind of, I support you, but that's your own thing. You do what you do. So having this group be that bedrock where you can just rely on every week, kind of talk about things, it's a good placeholder. We are kind of talking back and forth about it. So I completely agree.
Yeah, I think one of the people in the meeting had mentioned how pleasantly surprised they were to hear the majority of the guys that had actually thought about Valentine's Day and that they didn't want to mess the holiday up for their significant other, which was nice. But then, like you said, that made me think about just the group in general and how different this group is from, I don't know, I don't want to call it the real world, but the outside world, because everybody in the group that we've met so far is just willing to help each other. Nobody's, just out for themselves and selfish and things like that. And that's been really nice. And it was really evident when we got to meet last February at Zuber's first event. And, we've had discussions before. I've done some videos too about that. We have some people in the group and their spouse doesn't care about real estate. They don't care about retiring early. And maybe it's the place or their age, because like I said, until I was in my mid 40s, I hadn't really thought about retirement. And maybe some of these younger folks still aren't thinking that way. But later on, when you're feeling all the aches and pains and having to get up and go to work, then you might start to come around. But I also thought it might be a little bit lonely, like you said, for one person to be on this journey, hoping to improve their lives and their family's situation, and not having somebody to talk to about it. So they get to come to the meetings, whether it's ours or the East Coast group, or now Mark has the Monday group, just to have other people that are really, really into it to support you. And like I think you mentioned, maybe the partner will come on board later on, once they see how committed we are to this and why we're doing it. And that way they can both be on the journey together. I always have a weird thought of, like, just say that the husband is really into it and he's planning on retiring early and the wife's not, so the husband meets his goal and he retires, and then he has to go on vacations by himself and leave the wife home because she's got to work. I don't think that would be very fun.
Yeah, and I think it can evolve, and maybe they see the results year one, then year two, year three, then things change and they're like, hey, this is working. I'm getting interested because they're seeing the results now. So there's a lot of ways it could change up, and I'm always hopeful for the future. So
Yeah, yeah, I hope so too. I hope everybody can share the experience. Um, One of the last items that came up during the meeting, I think it was Chester that asked how what the process looked like if you wanted to switch from one property manager to another. And I know in the past we've we've actually fired a couple of property managers, and I don't think that was a great example for Chester, because the property management company we were leaving was a little bit hesitant and slow to get the new property manager all the information that they needed, even keys for the property and things like that. Um, and I think it was a little different. And I think Dana put it just right, where, you have good communication with the one that you're leaving, let them know, maybe why you're leaving, and have an adult conversation about it, rather than just saying, you guys are not very good, I'm switching. Then that's going to make the transition a little bit different. Have you had to get rid of a property manager yet?
I have, and it's exactly like Dana was saying, as long as you're professional, then it was good because the property management, they reached out to me and asked, "Oh, is there anything we could have done better?" And it's just having a professional conversation, just treating it like work, maybe a work conversation. And as long as you guys are on top of your documents, I'm on top of my documents, then it's gonna be an easy transition. That's all that really matters.
Yeah, and I think for one thing for me that I had to be sure and get was, because I didn't want to have to do it after the fact, was all the records, the monthly statements for the months that I was with the first property management company, just for taxes and things, to be sure I had it all, other than, waiting 6 months and having to go back and ask them for those things, they would have probably taken their time or dragged their feet to get them to me because I wasn't with them anymore.
I wished I would have had the original pictures of the unit. I had the original pictures with with their watermark on it. So that's the one thing I wished I would have got is the original pictures without their watermark, just so that I could have it for my own documents.
Yeah. And we also, while we were talking about property managers and stuff, the the actual record keeping did come up with us a few minutes ago, and how important it is to try to keep good records from the beginning, having separate email folders for each property and kind of organizing the statements to help your CPA better. I think you mentioned that you've put all your stuff on one spreadsheet, and I think Dion does the same thing. It seems like it sounds pretty simple just to print that out at the end of the year and they'll have all the numbers they need, but we were talking about how difficult it is when, like, if you have a repair and you need to go in and add it to the document, if you don't do it in a timely fashion, it might never make it on there.
Yeah, and I had watched this older video with Matt and Zuber, and they're talking about just keeping track of the monthly finances instead of like where me, I got kind of caught up in it and I waited, over a span of 8 months. Then I'm all scrambling for documents and everything. At that moment, that's when I realized I got to do a better job of organizing and making sure timelines was a big thing for me. It's like I'm trying to keep track of timelines. Yeah.
Yeah, and getting a good system in place in the beginning, right? Because you're under contract for your third. We're up to 10 now. And I think if we had let it grow any more before we get that system in place, it would just be much harder every time you get another property. So we're going to be trying to get some other guests to come on with us in the near future. We're hoping to actually get a property manager to come on and maybe one of our agents that's been helping us buy in St. Louis. I still have to talk to her about it, but just trying to add value wherever we can and keep the meetings interesting. Like we've said before, sometimes we go off topic and we have to rein the meeting back in, but everybody seemed to have a good time, and that's another thing too. I mean, like we've said before, it doesn't it doesn't have to be a strict accountability session. We can do that if anybody wants to, but just to be around each other and like we said before, people that are on the same journey in the same direction, that's helpful in itself. So we'll try to keep making them interesting. I also wanted just to bring up real quick that I mailed the first batch of ORAAT t-shirts out, and you guys should be getting them really soon this week. I would hope you would all get them. And I sent out an email to everybody to please wear their shirt, take a picture of it wherever you are, and post it to help us sell the 100 that we're shooting for. Things have been a little bit slow to this point, but I think once everybody gets them and all the other people in the group can see what they look like and stuff, that might encourage some of us to put the orders in now, because we're not going to have them for sale for too much longer because it takes time to get them from the printers and stuff. And we may have a few in Vegas with us, but not very many. Zuber did mention that he one of the things that he thought was good about the meeting in February was that nobody was selling anything. And that just made me think, we were thinking of having a few shirts, but maybe that's not going to be possible. So I want people to know that and get them before the event.
So you're saying when we do the weekly recaps, I'm gonna have to change the shirt?
Yeah, hopefully you'll be able to share the new shirt next week. I think they said yours was going to take about 9 days to get to you, and I think I sent them on Thursday, so you
I
should have it
understand. Yeah, might have to come in by canoe where I'm
by.
at.
Yeah, so Uh, anyway, we'll do this again next week. Thank you very much for being here as always. And I think next week we probably won't have a special guest, but maybe the week after that. And we'll just meet back again, talk about the good stuff.
Sounds good. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Thank you.
Okay, see ya.